and welcome to Archive Dive. I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Each month, we dip into files on historic events, people, and places in Superior and Douglas County with local historians. Today, we turn our lens to a pair of famous Superior women, Kathryn Ohman and Alma Kitchell. Ohman was a beloved English and drama teacher at what is now the University of Wisconsin-Superior. She taught for 38 years, and a theater named in her honor was the site of lectures and performances from 1960 to 2011. Kitchell was known as the golden voice of Golden Age radio. She sang her way into a radio job in New York in 1927 and went on to make history. Kitchell was a trailblazer in both radio and television, launching the first women's talk shows and starring in the first televised cooking show. Helping us dive into the story today is local historian Teddy Moronic. Hi, Teddy.
Hi, Maria.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Superior, we talk a lot about the famous men of Superior, but Superior has a lot of famous women also.
Superior does.
And these are two of the top candidates, right?
In my opinion, they are.
So I am more familiar with Kathryn Ohman because I have taken classes in the theater that was named after her and performed on its stage. I think a lot of people are familiar with that building, McCaskill, which went down in 2011.
Yeah.
What was she like?
Well, Kathryn Ohman came to Superior in about, I think, 1924. And she came here because her aunt was head of the English department at that time. You know, it wasn't UWS, but is UWS now. But she came and she taught French at Central High School. For about a year or so. And then her aunt got her a job at the college. And she had gone to school. She was born, I think, in Nebraska, and she did her undergraduate work there in Nebraska and then did her graduate work at the University of Chicago. But she was qualified to teach at the school at that time. She didn't have a PhD, but she was qualified to teach at the school. So she was hired to teach an English class. And she was very much interested in drama. She said her favorite pastime was reading drama.
Oh.
And as the years went on at the school, the college always put on a yearly, senior play. But there was no drama department, no theater department at the time.
Oh.
And she also taught at McCaskill at that time.
Which was a school to teach teachers, right?
She teach teachers, and she taught English to the 7th graders there.
Oh.
And then she got involved in the theater there. She put on their first production. I think it was Scrooge.
For the 7th graders?
Yes, for the kids who were at the McCaskill School. And it's like one thing morphed into another. They had a sorority or a fraternity. It was called, was it Alpha Psi Omega? And it was a nationwide drama. They called it a fraternity, but it was both men and women were involved in it. And they wanted every year to put on a senior play, but it seems they were sometimes disorganized or did not. They had the ideas, but they didn't have the know-how. So Kathryn took over that, and she became their advisor. And from that, it sort of morphed into directing 3 plays a year she did at the college, and eventually teaching a class in, I think it was called stage production. That was the first drama class ever offered at UWS. It was in I think in the 1930s.
Did she fight to get that there, or did they ask her to do it?
Well, I think she was instrumental in promoting it. And so it taught you everything you needed to know about being in theater, not just
in
acting.
One class.
Yes, in one class, how to do sets, and because the kids had to do everything just about. And so it taught them everything. It taught them how to write everything. And so that eventually morphed into her job becoming a lot more about theater. She was still in the English department, and she went on to produce plays every year, 3 plays a year for years. And it was especially interesting during World War II because they did not have a lot of men on campus at that time because everybody was in the service. And apparently she did this play. It was called Cry Havoc, and it was about the nurses who were on Bataan in the Philippines during the war. So it was an all-female cast. But she somehow convinced Tony Jaworski, who was working at Central at that time, to come over and create the set for her.
Ooh, and he's quite a renowned artist.
Yes, and he did that, and I guess it was a huge hit. But she was very inventive. What do I have to work with? a typical like local theater person because nobody's funding you at that level that you need. You have to improvise most of the time. And one year they did the Barretts of Wimpole Street, and they made their own dresses.
All of the cast members
Yes,
and crew, they made
some of
their own?
some of the cast members and then other people were involved, but they made their costumes, and apparently the styles were sort of like what people were wearing to proms that year. So after they were done with them, they sold them.
Oh, to kids
Yes,
for prom.
yeah. And so,
Wow.
but she was very creative in those things, and very enthusiastic about theater.
Mm-hmm.
And she was really the person who started theater at UWS.
While she was still teaching there, did it become a full department in and of itself?
I think she wasn't the head of it at that time. Yeah. I think it's sort of slowly morphed into that. I haven't really looked into when they actually accredited it as a department, but she headed the theater for 18 years.
18 years.
The other thing she was instrumental in was making sure that the people of Superior were involved in theater there. So she opened tryouts for parts
Mm-hmm.
to people in the community. And so they would come and act with the students on campus in their latest productions. And then she moved on after that to actually helping to form the Community Players, which was, an amateur theatrical group in Superior. That was, I think earlier in Superior's history, they'd had a, local theater group, but that sort of disbanded,
So she started a new one up.
She started, it was, I think, about in the late 40s, early 50s that she went out into the community, and she directed their first production was, what was it called? The Male Animal. The reason I remember it was a James Thurber thing, but the reason I remember it is that my 12th grade high school English teacher, Joe Schmidt, was in it. I think he had the lead role. And now that I know all of this, and I remember him from high school, he would read to us, and he had he had the presence to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Stage presence.
Very much so. Yeah, he was one of my favorite teachers, but she didn't involve herself totally in that because she had enough to do at the college with her 3 productions a year. So
was she around when they named the theater after her, and what was her reaction?
she was around. She had retired. I think she had retired in like in the early 60s. And they didn't name the theater, I think, until 67.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's when they named it. And so she was there, and she was at the naming of it. And when I was in college, the first play I ever went to at UWS was in the Kathryn Ohman Theater.
Mm-hmm.
It was The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. And I went because someone I had gone to high school with was in it. But I always remembered that theater. I saw other things there. But it was my first introduction to the college theater, and I think UWS has always had a fantastic theater department. I still go to plays there because they're just so good. But I remembered the name, but I never knew anything about her because she was gone by the time I had come to UWS. So I didn't think about it until they tore it down.
And then you started saying, who was this Kathryn Ohman?
Well, by the time they tore it down in 2011, I knew who she was. Because I worked a job where my best times were spent paging through the telegram and discovering all these people in Superior who had done these terrific things that no one knew about. And I was really sort of upset about it because I thought, well, one, she was a woman and she'd started the theater department. I mean, it was because of her that UWS had a theater department. She was the beginnings of it. And they had named the theater in Holden's after Gail Mannion, which that was a great thing because he was very instrumental in UWS's history too. He taught speech, and the other theater's named after Thorpe Langley, who is one of my favorite people because he was a geology and geography professor, but he was an actor too, So I think, and it's such a great name, Thorpe Langley, so you could never change that. But I was really upset, and then I went to a production at Holden's one night. And I looked, and they had a little plaque on a shelf there for Kathryn. And I thought, that's really not enough. It's not. I mean, she gave her whole life to the theater.
To the UWS theater part.
Yes.
Really.
I mean, putting on 3 productions a year plus teaching is a heck of a lot of work.
Yep.
And then you're dealing with college students. So, it really is true that they've got a million other things to do, but you have to somehow rein them in and get them on stage and to do this. And she always garnered great reviews for the things she did. And people gave her so much credit, especially during World War II, because you were so limited by which plays you could choose because there were no men on campus. But apparently she did try to recruit the men who were housed on campus and were there for training during World War II. Yeah, she sort of tried to get them involved in theater too.
So, in your mind, maybe the next project you might want to put together is getting a bigger plaque for Kathryn Ohman.
I think so. I think she deserves that, and it's always like these people who aren't. She was not a self-promoter. Like some people are self-promoters. She wasn't. She, I think, always was. If we get any, accolades for this, it belongs to the students because, they put in the work and all of that.
Selfless.
Yeah, she was very selfless. And I thought, well, that's kind of bad. I don't know. She just appeals to me in some sort of way that she really did give her life to the school.
Right.
It seems like. So.
Wow. Now, you were speaking just a minute ago about historical people we've never heard much about. I had never heard of Alma Kitchell until you mentioned her to me. And I went and I was like, oh, I'll do a quick search. Wow, she was amazing.
I don't even know how I discovered her. I have no idea. I must have just been going through the newspapers and she was in the paper all the time.
Really?
But she was a trailblazer.
So she lived in Superior until she was, about 19?
Mm-hmm.
And then her voice took her away.
Right. When she graduated from Central, she was in the first graduating class of Central High School.
The very first?
The very first, 1911. She went to Ohio to the Cleveland Conservatory of Music, and she studied there for a year. And then she went to New York City, and her mother accompanied her as her chaperone.
Of course, back in those days.
Yes. And her career kind of took off. She must have had a magnificent voice. I've never heard her. I've never heard a recording of her singing or speaking, so I don't know what it was like. But she got there and she got singing jobs immediately. And the first year that she was there, her mother left after the first year she was there. And then that year she continued to take singing lessons and she met Mr. Kitchell and married him. He was her singing teacher. Yeah.
Right. I read that. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
scandal.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure her mother, because he was quite a bit older than she was too. But she continued to get singing jobs. And then one day she just walked into a local radio station. I think it was WJZ or something. And she said she wanted an audition. And they said, well, you don't really have, you never asked us and we don't have any accompanist. And she sat down at the piano and played a song and sang and she got hired.
Wow.
Immediately.
To sing on air?
Yes, she sang on air for quite a while.
And then she became a broadcaster herself, right?
Right. She somehow got involved in, having her own radio show. But that was sort of I don't know. She had a decision to make because the Metropolitan Opera offered her at the same time a position.
She could sing with the opera or she could stay with broadcasting.
Yeah. But Alma had this sort of almost a second sense. She knew when something was going to become really important.
Really?
And she had, in fact, I think it was in 1917, been a part of one of the absolute first radio broadcasts before it was commonplace. And somebody had set up a station at the base of the Statue of Liberty, and Alma sang. So she, 1917, that was, because she didn't really get involved in the business till about 27. Mm-hmm. And it was during the 30s and 40s when she had her shows. So she was the first, I think she and this other lady, McBride, they were the first two people who ever had talk shows on radio. First two women. Yeah.
Wow.
And she did that for a number of years. And she would always have different shows, though. They would have different titles.
Okay, so she would have different shows going on at the same
time?
Or
she would. Oh, yeah. I think all she did was work.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and then...
They all with the same station, or did she...
Yes, yeah. She would have different programs on different days. It's not like she did them 5 days a week, the same show.
Right.
Yeah. They were always sort of aimed towards women, of course. And I think one show offered like $1 if she used your household hint or whatever it was. She would pay.
So people would send in their hints and then she'd read them on air.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the thing about Alma too is that she never forgot about Superior because her parents still lived here.
Mm-hmm.
at least part of the year. And then she would come back. And one time she came back to raise money for Central High School for scholarship in honor of Mr. Wade, although she did not go to school when Mr. Wade was principal. He didn't come until 13. And then she came back for the Dion quintuplets when they launched the ships because she rushed here. She took an airliner to Chicago, then took the train up here, and then went back to Chicago and broadcast the news about the Dion's and the launchings.
Oh, wow. So she came up here as a news reporter,
Yeah,
basically, and got the information.
Yeah, and visited her mom. And then she came up again because Globe Shipyard asked her to christen a ship.
Oh, wow. She christened a ship?
Yes, I think it was in 1944. So she came for that. And afterwards, after the ship had been launched, she went on it. And they said she was the first person at Globe who had ever gone on the boat that they'd christened.
Oh,
yeah.
You would think they would just automatically do that.
I guess
hey,
not.
This is the boat I christened. Let's go take a ride.
No, Alma just was a trailblazer.
She was. And then she went from singing and radio to broadcast TV.
I know.
How did that happen?
I think Alma had the second sense about maybe this has kind of run its course.
Oh, okay.
When I was really, into researching this, I looked at it and I thought, radio in its heyday did not last very long. I mean, it's lasted, there's still radio, but the kind of radio that she was in only lasted a short period of time. And she must have known, she's in New York, of course, she's going to know these things, that TV is on the horizon. And so she had the first cooking show on TV.
First cooking show, and it was called In the Kelvinator Kitchen.
Yes, Kelvinator appliances. So
Okay.
It was like 15 minutes. And she would make things like oysters Rockefeller.
Okay. Wow. Was it like her tip show where if she made your recipe, you would get...
I don't know if she ever went into that because it was only 15 minutes. I think it was mostly to publicize the appliances.
Okay. But I mean, people like Jacques Pepin or,
Yeah.
All of the cooking shows that came after, can they kind of give homage to her?
I would think so. Yeah, she was the start of it. And she stayed with that for about 2 years and then she retired.
Okay. Now, she had a famous coffee cake you were going to make today.
I know I was. She had a recipe and next time I'm going to make it.
Where do you find her recipes? Are they still around?
I think it was just something that was a promotional thing, like maybe for her cooking show or something. I don't know, but I have a copy of it at home. She was a go-getter. And then after she retired, she and her husband moved out to a suburb, like a suburban area of New York City. And she got involved in everything, local politics. She got involved in the theater and appeared in one play. And she was, into registering women to vote and all of that stuff. So she was really, really involved. And she lived to be 103 years old.
Wow, that is quite a life.
And Willard Scott, on the day of her birthday, he sent a salute to her from 30 Rockefeller Plaza, which was where she had broadcast from.
Oh, wow.
Because she was affiliated with NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gave her a shout out on her 100th birthday on the Today Show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did she come back to Superior anymore or when she was older?
I don't know if she did after her mother had passed away. I don't know because she was an only child, so she didn't have any siblings. She did come back one other time when the Crown Prince and Princess of Norway were here, which we've talked about before.
Really?
She came in, and it was just like she came in for that dinner and that was it because she had all these other commitments, but she didn't want to miss that. So she sang at the reception that was given for them at Concordia. She sang, "The best is yet to come." And I thought, well, that's really not true for them. The Prince and Princess of Norway. But yeah, she sang a couple songs for them and then she left.
Did she ever go back to a music career at all when she retired from TV?
No.
You said she went on stage a couple times.
Yeah, but I think she was involved in other things. And then her husband passed away and she remarried again and moved to Florida. And that's where she lived till she died. Okay. Yeah.
And she was a mom too.
She was a mom. She had 2 sons. And I told you about my encounter with AI. When I was looking up, I realized I had read something about the Kitchell family in the Wisconsin Magazine of History, and I wanted to see if I could find the article. And so I just put in Alma Kitchell and Wisconsin Magazine of History in a Google search, and it came up with this AI thing about how she was involved in the Apollo 10 moon moon mission.
Wouldn't she have been a little old?
She was, yes, 1969. By then she was in her 70s, and I didn't think she'd take up another career. But her son had been involved in it. He was a TV producer and director and had won an Emmy for the production that he did about the moon landing. So that's why it came up, but they didn't attribute it to him. They attributed it to Alma.
To his mother.
Okay, she probably would have been excited about that.
Right.
She was always breaking new ground.
Always breaking.
Exactly.
Even at 70.
Yeah, 70 plus years old. Yeah. So
wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I never knew about Alma, so thank you for sharing that information.
And it is interesting because her father owned a restaurant in Superior.
What restaurant?
It was Hopkins, because her maiden name was Hopkins.
Oh.
And she was an only child.
And she went on to do...
She went on to do these things. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Awesome. And I love that she continued to think of Superior.
Yeah.
Even when she became famous.
I'm always impressed with people who never forget where they came from, and it's like, I always say, small town, big dreams, right?
100%.
And if you were smart, you went to Central High School.
People are stuck where they are. They have to go where they go.
But I don't know what they were doing there, but it's amazing the number of people whose names that people would recognize went to Central High School. And I'm not saying that because, I'm an East Ender. So.
Well, so East has some pretty great people too.
They do. It's just a smaller population.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Teddy.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to Archive Dive. New episodes are available monthly at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic you'd like us to explore, email me at mlockwood@superiortelegram.com.